day with positive thoughts. Expose yourself to positive thoughts. There is enough material out there. All you have to do is help yourself. Just as you don't begin your day without brushing your teeth, you should not begin your day without exposure to these wonderfully divine ideas, knowledge, which sustains you through the day. And then by the time the day comes to an end, again you've cultivated, without your knowing it, negativities come into within you. Next day, again, sweep them clean. If you live a life like this, there'll be a distinct change, not only within you, in your thoughts, in your personality, in your character, but your environment will change from a hellish existence, which is what he's talking about, to a wonderful heaven. You create a heaven where there is a hell. Next verse.
Asurim yonimapannaha Mudha janmani janmani Mama prapyaiva kaunteya Tato yantyadhamam gatim.
Obtaining demonic wombs, deluded birth after birth, not reaching me. They fall into a still lower state, O Kaunteya, son of Kunti. He uses he addresses Arjuna as Kaunteya only to give him and through him all of us the assurance that you don't belong to this demonic category. You belong to the divine state. But he's only telling us to be careful. So he uses the word mudhaha, these fools, deluded people. Why does he use the word fool? Even in Bhajagovindam, Shankaracharya keeps saying mudhaha. Throughout the scriptures, this is not to put us down. This is not to insult us. You call a person a fool only when the person has potential for much greater things and is languishing, doing nothing about it. Isn't that true? If suppose you have two children, one child is intelligent, bright, has the capacity to excel academically, the other child doesn't have, academics is not his strength. What do? The person who has the potential, you keep saying, you fool, you got only 60%, you're capable of 90%. But the other child always manages to just pass. So normally when he gets 33% and he somehow manages to get 40% 1 year, you say, oh, really good, fantastic performance, only because you want to encourage him. But the child whom you call a fool every time, he'll wonder, I get 60%, did you call me a fool? And my brother gets 40%, you will say, well done. This is because the potential is there. That's why he calls us fools, because we have this infinite potential. And what he's saying here is, if you look at what happens to the wise, because their thinking is positive, they're doing all the right things through knowledge. They know what is right, what is wrong, they know what they ought to do, what they ought not to do, and their life is well organized. They create, because of the power of their thoughts, they create a conducive environment that promotes sattvic qualities. So, not only are they cultivating thoughts, the environment they create is also helping them to progress in life. So, they progress faster. Whereas in the demonic, just the opposite happens. They are cultivating negative thoughts, they are entertaining negative thoughts, they create a negative environment. That negative environment further pushes them down. Birth after birth, this happens until you reach a stage. He's only suggesting it. He says, if you don't correct yourself and you keep going downhill, chances are you will be born into a still lower state. Still lower state means animal existence. Because that is what is called hell. Now, why did you get there? Because your thoughts are taking you there. Again, analyze. See, you're not able to see the tragedy of the situation, because you only live moment to moment. You only see what happened yesterday, you see today, and you see tomorrow. You don't have the capacity to go back into the past, and you certainly don't have the capacity to project into the future what's going to happen to you. For instance, take a look at this. You're born. See a newborn infant? What trauma it goes through. First of all, every one of us is born crying. Have you heard of any child born laughing? And then, every stage of growth is painful. All this you overcome, and you're a full-grown adult. What do? You commit a series of mistakes, you entertain wrong thoughts, you do all the wrong things, commit mistake after mistake, and you land up in a situation where there is no way out except death. So off you go. Again you're born. And this is nature's way of giving us an opportunity to start afresh. So you start afresh, again you go through the same thing. You become a full-grown adult, again you commit mistake after mistake, die, and this goes on over and over again. Anyone who's able to stand apart from all this and see what's happening, not to you, at least see what's happening to others, changes. And this is the momentous decision of your life when you say, I don't want any part of this. I want to opt out. And then comes a wonderful existence, a wonderful life for you, where every moment, every second of your life, you're investing in your own growth rather than your own destruction. So analyze the time that you have wasted already. Analyze the time that you're wasting right now. And then the urgency of the situation hits you. Then you no longer sit around and say, oh, I'll start next week. Next year, 2008 is a nice year to start. Because a wise person understands, I may not be alive in 2008. So the time to start is now. If you don't do it now, maybe in your next life you won't have a conducive environment like you have now. If you're born in Argentina, what Bhagavad Gita are you going to study there? So thank your stars, you're born in a country which has this knowledge in plenty. In those days, in the ancient times, they used to say a person had to do many, many janmas of punya to be born as an Indian. I believe it still holds good. But after all these janmas of punya, you're born in India, and by the time you're 15, 16, you want to go to America. So all that punya has gone wasted. So I'm not saying you shouldn't go there, but at least use the purpose for which you're born here to give that spiritual lift to yourself, and then you can go wherever you want. It doesn't matter. Next verse.
Trividham narakasyedam dvaram nashanamaatmanaha kama krodhastatha lobha tasmadetatrayam tyajet.
Destructive of the self, this gateway to hell is threefold. Now in 20, he tells us that a demonic person destroys himself. In this verse, he tells us what is the cause of the destruction. The cause is, the gateway to hell is threefold. Kama, Krodha, Lobha. Kama, desire. Anger, Krodha. Lobha, greed. Then he concludes, Tasma, therefore, one should forsake these three. It's a beautiful, rational, clear logic. And this presentation appeals to people. So if somebody were to just say, oh, give up desire, you'll say, why should I give up desire? So here he's giving us a clear reasoning why desire is destructive of the self. So he uses the word trividha, triple, threefold, to mean, to suggest subtly that all of that comes from one thing, desire. So what happens is, when you entertain a desire, First of all, how does the desire come? Thought. How does the thought come? Sorry? Void, correct. Only when you experience a sense of emptiness, a void, will the thought come. If you're full, the thought doesn't come. So, the source of the desire is a sense of unfulfillment, a feeling of emptiness, which they say is imaginary, but imaginary, otherwise you experience this emptiness. As a result of this experience of emptiness, unfulfillment, thoughts arise in your mind, and these thoughts go out into the world. If you feed the thought, meaning you invest in it, more and more thoughts are going in the same direction, that thought becomes a strong stream of thoughts going between you and the object of desire, and this becomes desire. Now, the fact that you are entertaining a desire, there is no guarantee that it will be fulfilled. There are two possibilities. If the desire is fulfilled, more desire, greed, lobha. And if the desire is frustrated, anger. So, greed and anger are nothing but modifications of desire. If your intellect is alert and analyzes the thought at the thought stage itself, before it becomes a desire, then what happens is you analyze it and you ask yourself, is this a thought that is in line with my life's mission? Is this something that I need to fulfill, or is it trivial? Is it something that goes against my life's mission? And straight away, so many thoughts get eliminated right at that stage. It's possible to do that. But what you do is, you're not alert at thought stage, and you allow the thoughts to build momentum. And then it becomes desire. And that desire, if it still remains unchecked, it becomes what the Gita calls as vega. Vega means it develops a speed, momentum, velocity, correct, which is very difficult to hold back. Thereafter, you become a slave to desire. So if you control it, then you're a divine person, you're a spiritual person. Forget spiritual or divine, you're a sensible person. If you're not able to deal with desires and thoughts, you're the most foolish person on earth, because you're just signing yourself up for a lot of trouble. That's what Ravana did. Ravana allowed, what is the difference between Ravana and any one of us? The difference is Ravana allowed the desire to gather momentum till it became that vega. Ravana, if you see the descriptions in the Ramayana, he had everything. He had immense wealth. He was an excellent administrator. He had damsels from the heaven in his harem. But he was not content with that. He wanted one more. And that too, he picked on a virtuous person, Sita. That was his undoing. This is what we all do. You have so many things, you're not content with it. You allow the desire to build up into vega, where then you lose your discrimination between what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, and you embark on a program that just can't work. So all the WorldComs and the Enrons and all the scams of the world are originating here. Where? Thought, correct. They all originate with the thought. One thought enters your mind and finishes you off. This is exactly what a virus does, what a bacterium does. A pathogenic bacterium, one bacterium enters your system. If your immune system is strong, it's able to deal with it, kill it, exterminate it. You don't even feel it. You don't even know what's happening. You carry on blissfully unaware. But the moment your immune system is weak, that virus enters your system and within hours you're flat out. Still, if you don't wake up, you'll end up in the ICU. And we're all in spiritual ICUs, You need to understand that. So, don't allow this thought to drag you down. And the worst is, how does the thought come to you? Sometimes it comes from the environment. Don't allow others to drag you down. Don't allow temptation from outside to drag you down. Shakespeare presents this in Othello, where Iago, the villain of the piece, lures Cassio into getting drunk. That poor fellow, in his lifetime he had not got drunk. But this fellow just eggs him on, lures him. Come on, one more. And before he knows it, he's drunk and he's had a brawl. And Othello comes and punishes him for it. That's when he gets that punishment, he looks at the bottle of wine and he says, "O thou invisible spirit of wine, if thou hast no other name to be called by, let us call thee devil." And that devil you are happily quoting. Desire, thought. So we're not even talking about negative thoughts. Spiritually speaking, even a single highly sattvic desire stands in the way between you and realization. And what must be our state with so many thousands and millions of negative desires are there? So the degradation begins when you allow these three to run riot within your system: desire, greed, anger. This happens at the individual level, this happens at the collective level. What happened to the Roman Empire? What happened to all these civilizations which came up and they reached a certain level of prosperity where they got complacent, and their entertainment in the Roman Empire, the description is, their entertainment was to see lions tear apart human beings and eat them up. Can you imagine what grotesque entertainment? And that was the beginning of the end. See, we are all coming close to that. We are all sitting there watching television, or movies, where this kind of thing happens. Horror movies are the thing of the day. How can you sit there and watch somebody do grotesque, cruel things to people? There's so much violence that you're seeing. And when you see all of this, it has an impact on your system. So when the next time you get angry, you think nothing of taking a weapon and injuring somebody. That's what's happening. So how to protect yourself? Pick up a higher desire. See, remember one thing, all these karma yoga, bhakti yoga and jnana yoga, it's work in a spirit of yajna, and all this is told not because the world needs our service. The world has been perfectly designed to function, carry on with or without our help. But we need to pick up a higher desire just to escape from the negativities of it. If you don't pick up a higher desire, the lower takes over your personality. So greed, anger, it's not just this. Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, and by the end of it you're finished. So in the Bible it is said, "Straight is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it." What he's saying is the right path is something that is straight but narrow. And most of us tend to miss it because it's not attractive. It doesn't give instant joy, instant pleasure, instant gratification. Whereas on the other side, wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go therein. That's the problem. So you might wonder, are we so unintelligent that to destroy ourselves? The problem is, the path of self-destruction appears very attractive. And the path of self-development, the path to heaven, appears so unattractive and boring that you get completely misled. So therefore you need to hold back, think, analyze, and then take whatever actions you need to take. 22.
एतैर्विमुक्तः कौन्तेय तमोद्वारैस्त्रिभिर्नरः आचरत्यात्मनः श्रेयः ततो याति परां गतिम्.
O Kaunteya, one liberated from these three gates of darkness does what is good to oneself and goes to the supreme goal. So this verse brings us to the last topic of the chapter, which is entitled How the Divine Get Liberated, 22 to 24. So what he's saying here is the divine get liberated from the three: desire, greed, and anger. And how do you get liberated from desire? What do you use? Intellect. First step, bring the intellect in place to scan the desire, to guide the desire, to analyze the desire and decide which desire to fulfill, which desire not to fulfill. Next comes pick up a higher desire so that the lower falls away. We've seen this yesterday. And you go higher and higher till you reach the last desire, which is the desire for self-realization or liberation. This last desire, the last thought, vanishes by itself. It's too subtle, too refined to remain in your system, so it goes away completely. This is the meaning behind Krishna being described as Makhan Chor. Otherwise, does it make sense worshipping a person who's a thief? And that too the butter. Butter represents highly sattvic thought. After you churn your mind and get rid of all the negativities, cultivate the positive, this positive, the butter, sattvic thought is, you bring your mind to 100% sattva. And when you bring your mind to 100% sattva, that 100% sattvic quality is taken away by Krishna. And that is put poetically as Krishna going and stealing butter from the gopis. And why would a man of realization go and steal anything, leave alone butter? Butter represents the sattvic thought. So, this is the procedure, the process. Etai tribhi tamodvaraihi. These are the gates of tamas. Tamas means ignorance. And these three plunge you into the darkness of this senseless world and senseless world.